TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Now, for those that don't know, how did Verne come to power, and how did the AWA become its own entity?
Well, Verne started in 1950 on the DuPont network. It ran for 7 years. WGN had taken it over, and the wrestling was so popular, it ended up being on 7 days a week, and they burned it out. So then you had to pay to get on TV. So what Verne did, he started his own vitamin company. And the whole time Chicago's where they did the TV, but we always lived in Minneapolis, and he'd drive to Chicago every week for that. And in the meantime, they were expanding the territory in Minneapolis. He came back and bought in as a partner in '57. And they were only drawing about 400 people in Minneapolis. His job was to help expand it and get the talent in there and get this thing going. He knew what to do.
Okay.
The guys who ran it, Wally Carbo, Bill Casisto, they were great guys, but they didn't know how to run wrestling. My dad learned what television meant to professional wrestling. So when he got his vitamins going, he ended up getting on in Detroit, sponsored the show in Detroit. He didn't want to be in Detroit, and Bruiser ran it, mostly him and the Sheik. They became partners there. Verne concentrated on the Midwest and West, and that was his goal.
Break down how the AWA TV shows was syndicated prior to cable spreading nationally.
Well, every week we did our wrestling program out of Minneapolis. We taped it, and then you would cut separate interviews for each market, and we'd have five interview slots, 2-minute slots for interviews to plug whether you're coming to Denver or you're the card in Omaha or Milwaukee, wherever it's going to be. So then they would put those interviews into that tape and send it to the station we were working with in Denver or San Francisco, wherever.
How did the ESPN deal for AWA come about? And do you think the company was able to make the most of that deal with ESPN?
If they'd have come early, well, here, what happened to us earlier? Okay, I just want to backtrack a little bit. CBS came to us when Hogan was in Japan and said, we want to do every once a quarter a match on CBS network.
That would have been huge.
But we have to have Hogan. So that was in the mix that Hogan didn't know about because he was in Japan. That they came to us in early December, and they wanted to start the first one in February. I thought, well, shit, that'd be great because we got Andre then.
Right.
We can have that match on network TV, on CBS.
That would have been what, 82?
83.
83, okay.
February of 83.
Okay. Larry Nelson wrote in his book that Verne didn't even have a cable at the time and never watched the show. Do you think your father had a grasp of how much technology was changing the TV and wrestling landscapes?
Well, he watched it. He'd come over to my house and watch it.
Okay.
He didn't have cable at home, but he had it, He knew what was going on. I don't think any of us knew what the impact cable would have at that time. I mean, if we all would have, we'd invested in it.
What led to AWA getting, I believe it was up in New York City, WPIX, since that was really so far outside of the AWA area? Were you guys looking to expand?
Well, no, we went in there because McMahon had come into our area.
Okay, so it was just...
And that was part of WGN. They put us on at WPIX, and that gave us the outlet there with USA Wrestling to promote the Meadowlands. We couldn't get into the Garden, but the Meadowlands.
I remember that.
And put a thorn in Vince's side like he was putting in everybody else's. And then we had put together a great big deal with WGN. We had worked 4 years on it, spent all our money on it. They were going to put us on all the tribute stations, WPIX, KTLA in LA, the one in New Orleans, the one in Atlanta and Chicago, WGN. And they were going to be our partners, and they also had a piece, was the pay-per-view on at that time? What's the name of the company? Anyhow, they owned it. So we were bringing Hogan in. We'd worked 4 years on this. We had ESPN paid us to be on the program. That's what kept us going.
Right.
They said, give us all the commercial time on ESPN. So we pulled all the spots, gave it to WGN. Their guy had it. Went to New York. Hogan was going to sign with us. He was going to sign a $6 million contract with us, with WGN. And the day we got there to go in for the meeting, they said our newspapers went on strike. We don't know how long they're going to be out. we can't do the deal now. Now we've lost all our commercial time with ESPN. We have nothing. We were done. That is the true, real story of what went down.
I appreciate
No matter whatever else you hear from anybody, I was there with both Vince, Vern, and when the whole thing went down, and that's the way it went down.